joining us this morning, and I'm going to do a quick intro so we give time for people joining us. Welcome to this ShrinkSync Open Mic webinar. Open Mic is a chance for ShrinkSync community members to highlight their expertise and share their knowledge with the rest of the community. I'm Rachel Tomasian, licensed marriage and family therapist, and one of the founders of ShrinkSync. Since there are some seasoned as well as some new members on this webinar, I just want to share that ShrinkSync is a digital community for therapists. We help therapists find referrals, jobs, events, and have a safe discussion on a secure platform. If you haven't already joined, you'll have a chance to join once the webinar is over, or you can always visit shrinksync.com or download ShrinkSync on your phone and join that way. A few kind of housekeeping rules for this webinar. We're going to go through a lot today in terms of digital marketing using a website and using SEO to promote your website. So there's a lot to cover today. It's going to be an overview um, for websites in general, and we're going to discuss some of the ways you can create your own website. And even if you have somebody else design your website, the most important things that you want to be having on your site. And then, of course, how to have your website perform really well when people are doing Google searches. I'm going to ask that we keep questions till the end because there is so much to cover and there's a good chance that I will answer your question. I did my best to leave some time for the end. If for some reason that doesn't happen, you can always visit our blog where this webinar is going to be posted and then add a comment, and then we can either answer there or have a webinar focusing on that topic. Since this is a marketing webinar, we will not be offering CEUs for this, although we are looking into doing that for the future. All of our open mics, which have an educational component, we do offer CEUs for, and those you can watch and do on our website as well. And I just want to do a really quick shout out. My high school psychology teacher is watching this webinar. So, hi, Miss James. She's an MFT as well, and I'm really excited that she's joining us. So, I'm going to talk really quickly about why I decided to have this webinar. And also about why ShrinkSync was founded. Um, we have found that therapists are really social and do a lot of networking, but that the community is really fragmented based on licenses, locations, specialty, and we wanted to create a space that was welcoming and inclusive of everyone. The other thing that we noticed is that there are a lot of companies who will charge therapists an arm and a leg for their services. And we've talked to too many therapists who feel like they were taken advantage of and they were being charged way too much money to join another directory or create a website specifically for therapists to improve their marketing. And I think that because we are therapists and not tech people, sometimes that therapists are taken advantage of. And ShrinkSync is free for therapists to use. And I wanted to talk about how you can create a website for very little cost that does really well and not paying, $70 or $80 a month to have somebody create a flat page for you and call it a website. And that ties into why we're featuring this new segment here on Shrink Open Mic, which is the digital marketing for therapists. And we're going to teach you how to do all this digital marketing without charging you, let's say, $1,000 an hour to do your marketing for you. In the last several years, I've done a lot of research on digital marketing and built several websites for myself and other therapists, both for therapy and non-therapy related ventures. I've learned myself what's worked and what hasn't worked by both trial and error and extensive research, tutorials, and books. And happy to share what I've learned with all of you. So let's jump right in and talk about why I believe every therapist needs to have a website. First, the most obvious reason is for anyone who is searching for a therapist online. And just to give you an idea, there are thousands of searches for therapists in Southern California every single month. If you don't have a website, you don't have a chance of these people choosing you over somebody else who does have a website and comes up when that potential client searches online. The second reason is because if I am looking online to refer a client out to a different therapist, I'm going to go on Google and I'm going to type in that person's name. And if their phone number and their website doesn't show up, I'm going to move on to the next person because it takes a lot of time for me to go through business cards to find somebody's phone number. The third reason is once that referral is passed on, and I think that you'll find this to be true of different resources that you use yourself, whether you're going to the doctor or the dentist or something like that. You want, as a client, you want to be researching who you're going to online. And that's a really important feature to have. It's important for you to be available to be found for clients online. So I give, let's say, John MFT's phone number out to a family member to call. They might want to look online to see what information they can find on this person. And that leads me to my fourth point, which is I can find out a lot of information about anybody online. So if you're worried about that exposure, I'm here to tell you that I can find out anything I want about you online. So you want to be controlling what is out there. Do a quick Google search on your name, and if your website is not the first thing that pops up, then you need a site that caters to that. You need to control what people are seeing when they search for you. Um, a lot of times I will search for a therapist, and on the first page, I'll see their wedding registry, their, like some presentation that they did, which was not related to therapy at all. So you want to control what shows up on the first page when people search for you. And the easiest way to do that is by creating a website um, and engaging in some social media. So we're going to jump right into how to create a website and what you'll need. So think of a website as real estate. You're going to need an actual house, which will be your website. You'll need a host, which you can think of as land, and you'll need a physical address, which is your URL. So the www.shrinksync.com, that's our URL and our physical address. Some of the web creation services I'm going to talk about will include your hosting and URL in one package. If you use WordPress, which I'm going to talk about, you'll have to purchase and connect your own host. And one quick thing that I want to mention, Google is going to be your best friend when it comes to creating a website or doing anything in terms of promoting your practice online. Any of these items that I talk about, whether it's, a keyword search tool or finding your own host, if you just Google these terms, you're going to find really quick and easy answers on how to do it, where to find it. You'll probably find hundreds of YouTube tutorials to teach you how to do these things, and all of these things are available to you for free and readily available. So you're going to want to put some quality content on your website. And what that means is important information, whether you are providing some minimal psychoeducation or some information about how to use therapy, or if it's information about you. And I personally think that you should probably have all three on your website. And you want to have some good pictures. You take some time to take a professional picture of you because that will go a long way and you can use it in all sorts of places. You want to have one before you need it. Sometimes therapists are approached for media opportunities, and you want to have that picture available and not have to take one last minute. That's going to be really important for your website as well as directories that you use online. It's the first thing that people will see, and sometimes people do pick their therapist based on their picture. So that's going to be really, really important to have. You're going to need some time. So I remember the first time that I created a site on one of the easier tools. It took me a few weeks to do. So I would spend a couple hours each day and just kind of perfecting it. I've probably made 5 websites now, and I can do it over the weekend. So it really depends on getting the hang of things and getting used to how everything is being run. And you're going to need some money. So let's talk about how much money that might cost. And again, I know that there are some websites for therapists, website creation tools for therapists, which I won't name names, but they cost about $70 a month. And if you're paying that, it's entirely too much to be paying for a website, unless it's some dynamic, incredible website that they're hosting for you. Your website should cost about $150 a year, all said and done. Some of these websites will create it for free, but you won't have your own URL, and some you can pay like $50 or $70 a year, depending on the package that you get. But under $200, you should be able to have hosted a fantastic website. So that's kind of the money that you're looking at. Let's talk about SEO really quickly. Um, I know you've probably heard it mentioned a zillion times. SEO is really important for your website. So it's basically the process of affecting the visibility of your website or a website or web page in a search engine's natural or unpaid organic search results. When you Google something, you'll notice at the very top there are paid ads, and then on the bottom of that are things that show up organically. So if I search for running shoes, I might get some paid ads from Nike or Adidas, and then right after that are going to be the sites that Google thinks that are most relevant for me. So Nike will show up most organically if I search for running shoes because they're kind of the experts on that. They're what people are looking for. So if you want to show up for, let's say, a teen therapist in Los Angeles, you want to make sure that your content is driven towards that, and Google will see you as the expert on that. And that's how you show up organically. There's more to it, to showing up, but we're going to go over that now. Sorry, who's touching my screen? Sorry. Okay, I'm going to go into website creation services. I mentioned that there are some sites or some services that will help you really easily create a website. And we're going to look at these as Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So Wix is um, the baby bear. It's really easy to create a website on Wix. Um, Drag and drop. You might not perform so well on SEO, but they're getting much better at that. Squarespace, I'll touch on in a second, and WordPress is the daddy bear. It's really difficult to use, even for people who are in the tech industry. It's fairly difficult to create a website on WordPress. It's doable, and there are tons of tutorials. The other thing to keep in mind about WordPress is that there is no customer support. So you're going to have to find out all your answers through forums or hiring somebody to help you with that. But you can do a lot on WordPress, and you can customize it a lot, and you can really drive SEO through WordPress. Squarespace is, the right fit. It's not too easy, it's not too hard. It's pretty user friendly, really easy to figure out. And it does really well for SEO. It looks dynamic, it looks great. Um, and a lot of people have been using it to create really good websites. So if I was going to recommend one right now, if I was going to create a website for myself right now, and I didn't have a WordPress site, I would start with Squarespace, and you can do a lot with Squarespace, and they're really great. And and just to reiterate, Wix and Squarespace, there are other. I haven't tried Weebly, and I've about it. My understanding is that it's very similar to Wix. So again, Squarespace is I would recommend over those two. Wix and Squarespace and Weebly, they will do all of the work in terms of getting you a host and getting you connected and getting you a URL, so you don't have to do the extra work. With WordPress, you're going to have to buy your URL through a company like GoDaddy and find some hosting off of a different company like DreamHost and connect all of those two. And if you're not familiar with all of this, certainly there's a lot of room for error, and that's why I recommend creating a site off of one of these platforms that make it really simple to do. I'm not getting my PowerPoint. Sorry. So let's talk about some of the contents that you want to have on your site. You want to have a welcome and homepage, and a story that I want to tell about that is I once had a client who came in and said, oh, Tony's been pleased with Weebly. So I guess it could work. So just check out all three of them and see, or all four of them, and see which one you like best. I haven't tried Weebly, and that's why I didn't mention it. You can get a quick tutorial from all three and pick which one you like best. Going back to the homepage, I once had a client who came in and said, do you realize that when people are looking you up online, they're in tears and they're in the worst place they are in their lives or they have ever been? So take that into consideration when you're designing your site. I know sometimes we like to be super cheerful or put so much of our personality in our website, but it's something to think about, that the people who are looking at your site are going through something really, really difficult. Nobody starts looking for a therapist when everything is just peachy in their lives. So you want to cater that. You want to have a welcome page that is shows that you care, shows that you are there to help people with any issues and problems that they might be having, and that you are able to help. You really want to have an about you page. And again, I want to emphasize to have a really good picture of you along with your about. I've had people contact me because they saw that I went to Pepperdine and they had a good friend who went to Pepperdine, or something like that. Or I've had people contact me because I looked young and they thought that I would be able to connect with their teenager. So if you don't have a picture up, you're gonna have some disconnect, but um, some people, I understand, really want their privacy. So you're kind of walking that line if you decide to have one or not. I would really recommend having one if your focus is having a good website and having it perform well when people search for you. You want to have some services you provide. So if it's couples therapy, individual therapy, team therapy, and write some content about that. And I'm going to talk more about how important content is. Talk about some of the problems you treat. Some people don't like putting fees on their website, but I have my fees up on my site, and I think that if people call me, they're going to find out my fee anyway. So I think that my site lets people know whether or not I'm a good fit for them before they call for that. Or if you have a sliding scale, you can mention that as well. Most importantly, and you would think this is obvious, but sometimes it's not, you want to have your contact information up on your site. It should be above the fold, so it should be one of the maybe first things that you see on a website, because people will look you up. If they see your phone number, will call you. I've gone on several therapist sites to make referrals to them, and their phone number is not on their website. So please make sure that your phone number is super obvious and super easy to find on your website. It's really, really important. You don't want to create all this amazing content and have an amazing website and then people can't contact you. I like to also have a form where people can contact me directly from my website, and that gets emailed to me because some people are not comfortable with talking on the phone. So I do some of that communication via email. We talked about SEO really quickly. So now we're going to go into how you get your website to perform really well. Somebody mentioned something about keywords. So I'm going to talk about that right now, actually. Take some time to think about what keywords you want to be found for. Some keywords are more competitive than others, some are more relevant than others. And so if you want to be found for, let's say, therapist in Los Angeles, that's going to be more difficult than child therapist in Burbank or therapist who treats trichotillomania in Santa Monica. The more specific you are, the more easier it is going to be for people to find you. But then you also have to think about how many people are searching for that keyword. So the perfect tool for this, and I'm going to ask you to Google it so you can find it and use it. It's called the Google Keyword Tool. So Google has created this tool online that will help you see how many people are searching for a given keyword every month and what the competition is for that keyword. So is there a high, medium, or low number of other websites who are already focusing on that keyword? So ideally, you want to have a keyword that has a high number of searches, but a low number of competitors using that keyword. And then you want to integrate that keyword within your content. And this does not mean stuffing your website and having every other word be teen therapist in Burbank, because you'll actually lose SEO points for doing that. The perfect ratio is about 2 to 4% of how much your keyword should be used within your content. So you want to create a lot of content in order to use those keywords enough times where Google will pick up on it. And then there are certain places within your site that keyword placement is more important than other places. So you want to use it within your heading, you want to use it within your title and your footer of your website. And I believe, the first and last 50 words of your website, of any web page, are more important than the rest. So there are some tricks you can use with that, but the most important part to remember is the content you're creating, and it should be relevant. It shouldn't just be forced. It should come naturally within the content that you're using. Sorry, I just jumped around. Okay. Sorry, guys. Where did my keywords go? So some places you want to start with Google looking for your site, which, sorry, Angela. Yes, each page within the website, the first and last 50 words count more than the rest of the whole web page. So you want to use your keywords within those first and last 50 words. Some places to start for SEO are submitting your website to Google. So you would think that once you've created your wonderful website, that it will just show up on Google, but that's not the case. You want to tell Google that your website now exists. And Google will go through every couple months through the whole internet and index every website, but you want that to happen quicker and better for you. So if you just Google submit my website to Google, the tool should pop up and you can type in your website and have it search for your site right away. Another thing to sign up for is called Google Webmaster Tools, and that will allow you to index your site quicker and better with Google and have it show up better in search results. So some things to think about when it comes to websites. And I wrote a few blogs on this in the last 2 weeks. So if you want to visit shrinksync.com/blog, you'll get a lot more detailed information about all of these things. So think of SEO, you have two things to do in terms of your job for promoting your website. One is called on-site SEO, or things you can do within your website to promote it. And then there is off-site SEO. So traveling outside of your website to promote your site. When it comes to on-site SEO, these are things like keyword planning that I just talked about, meta tags. So these are, if you're using any of those tools that I mentioned before, Wix, Squarespace, or even WordPress, there will be a place where you can put in your meta tags, and that is what you are telling Google your website is all about. So this should be your title, your specialty, and it's only a few words. You can probably pick 3 or 4 keywords and have them be your tags. Your content, which I mentioned is really important, as well as your user experience. So you want your website to be quick, um, easy on the eyes, and something that users are going to explore. And the reason for this is if somebody lands on your website, only looks at the homepage, and then clicks out of your website and doesn't spend too much time on your site, you're going to have a high bounce rate. So bounce rate is the number of people who have percentage of people who have visited your site, just visited one page and then left. And that actually will work against you when it comes to SEO. So you don't want that to happen. You want people to stick around and explore. Um, Aside from the fact that you want to be providing people with useful information, you want your website to um, do well as also. So this can happen in terms of blogging as well. When it comes to content and user experience, you want to have current content and you want to have new information on your site all the time. And the way to do that is not by recreating your website all the time, but by blogging. Blogging creates a new page on your website every time you add a post. And you're not only adding content, but you have an opportunity to add keywords as well. And a note about blogging, if you're not going to be doing it regularly, you might as well not do it at all. And regularly is, maybe once or twice a week. And that's really going to drive traffic to your site, which also is good for SEO. Let me see if there's anything else about content. You want to make sure that all of your relevant information is on there. The more you expand and talk about things that are important for your practice, the better it's going to do for search, the better it's going to do when somebody visits your site. Elena just shared that Weebly and Wix use Flash. I know that Wix moved off of Flash like a couple years ago, and now they have an HTML5 version. That's a good point. You don't want to be using a website creator that uses Flash because websites or operators like Chrome, certain browsers are not reading Flash anymore. So URL, for example, my URL is glendaleTherapy.org. So I provide services in Glendale, and that's what my URL. It's kind of tricky whether or not your URL is going to work for SEO. It used to be my name. I changed it to Glendale Therapy to include more. I wanted it to be more than just my name as my title. It's good to have the service you're providing as your URL. So for ShrinkSync, we have shrinksync.com, and people can find us pretty easily. So Peter, it's something to think about if you want to integrate. Sorry, I was just reading a question. Is that what the question was, Peter? What my URL is or what a URL should be? Your URL is the title of your, or the www, what people type in to find somebody's website. So think about whether you want that to be your name. If you have a really long name that's hard to spell, you probably don't want that as your URL because there's so much room for error and people might not find you. The reason I switched from my URL being my name to kind of the location that I serve is because I wanted my website to be more than just about me. I have several interns and I have their information on there as well. And um, I have a blog where I provide information. So I wanted it to be more than just about that. Okay, I think that answers your question. Um, I just talked about keywords, but going back to it, you want to spend some time thinking about what your keywords should be. And you want to pick 3 or 4 keywords to really focus on. And this should not just be a random what you guess people are going to be looking for, but more of an educated, research-based thing that you come up with. So people might not be searching for a therapist using the words that you are thinking of. And Keyword Tool will really help you with that, and so will trial and error. Pick 3 or 4 and kind of test those out. So somebody just mentioned that they're considering doing a survey to figure out keywords. You'll also, if you use keyword tools, you'll also see the most used keywords and words will be recommended to you. Um, you want to have a pretty broad approach when it comes to this so that you can attract more people to your site, but then at the same time have a more focused. So it's creating the perfect balance of keywords. And you can also have certain pages that are dedicated to certain keywords. So if I do child therapy, I can have a page within my website that talks all about that and really focuses heavily on the keywords on child therapy. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the focus of my website overall. Any questions about keywords before I move on? I think I can pause for some questions right here. Okay, I guess so. Any words I suggest not using, um, things like free or low cost, if that's not what you're doing, because a lot of people search for free therapy and low cost therapy. And if you're a for-profit center, um, you want to keep away from that. Um, so another thing that I will probably do another webinar on is Google AdWords. And this is when you pay per click when people type in certain words. So we'll talk more about keywords when it pertains to that. But I guess keywords that you want to avoid using are maybe the more have if there are low searches for that keyword and a lot of people using that keyword already, you don't want to be putting yourself in that space when you can be doing really well in another area. Is there a Google tool to see what your site keywords is heavy for? There probably is, and if you Google it, you'll find out. Um, I Google Analytics will also tell you um, what's sticking out for your website. So that's one of the tools that I didn't mention yet. And again, Google is amazing because they provide all of these services for free for everyone to be using. You want to plug in Google Analytics for your website. Again, it's free, and if you just search for it on Google, it will show up, and they will give you a unique code which you can plug into your website, and it's fairly simple to do with Wix, Weebly, Squarespace. Even WordPress now is getting really easy to do that, and it will tell you what people searched for when they clicked to find your website. So that's some information that you want to know, along with so many other features that they have. Let me see. Have you used Google Data Highlighter? I have not, so I'll look into that. Thanks, Angela. If you use WordPress, can you get these stats as well? WordPress has a plugin called Jetpack, and that will let you see some similar analytics to Google Analytics, but I don't think it's as good, but it's still good where you can find the words that people searched to find your website. Do you use keywords to pull people from outside searches? For example, my Valentine's promotion got searches for Valentine's Day dinner rather than people looking for therapy. So a word about that, and in advertising in general when it comes to therapy, and I could be wrong, so people can type that into the chat box. I think that you're more likely to get clients to come to therapy who are already looking for therapy. I don't think that therapy is a service that people will see an ad and then right away call and get that service, if that makes sense. So if they're looking for a Valentine's Day dinner and they see therapy, they're not going to be very likely to call the therapist as they were if they were looking for a therapist. So I'm sure as therapists, we know people have to be in the right mindset and be ready for therapy to come in. So that's just something to think about, Tony. I hope that answers your question. So I like to focus on people who are already looking for therapy versus spending time convincing people to come to therapy. I agree with you. And when it comes to websites and online advertising, I think that there's a lot of trial and error involved, and what's worked for me may not work for somebody else. And you really have to try some of these things just to see what works. Okay, I'm going to move on. We can come back to this at the end. We should have time. So now I'm going to talk about offsite SEO. So this is kind of your PR agent. You are your PR agent for your website. This is what you do off of your website to help it do better on search. Some of the things that you want to do is to get links to your website from quality sites. So not just any site, but you want the website to be relevant and you want it to be doing well in SEO themselves. And you want them to get to link to your website. So how on earth are you going to do that if you are a new website? Think of the top performing websites right now. And if you're thinking Facebook, Twitter, Google, Psychology Today, you can get all your links on all those sites by just creating an account. You should be pretty proactive on these sites. So on Twitter, I have a pretty large following. So my page on Twitter has good SEO, has good page rank. So my website being on my page on Twitter drives my SEO. Psychology Today is a really popular site, and getting your website on your profile page will help your website do well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an expert contributor on all these websites now, but you can create a profile on a website and get your link on there, and that will help your site in terms of SEO. Social media, just make it a point to engage if you're going to have social media accounts, and we can do a whole webinar on SEO as, social media as a therapist. And I think that if you're going to have the time to devote to be active, and it doesn't take that much time, but a little bit of time each day, you can create a really good profile and link your website to it and really promote your website that way. The other way to do your offsite SEO is becoming an expert. And what I mean by that is contributing to online magazines, contributing to articles that, say, Huffington Post, Everyday Health, magazines like that, online magazines like that have in articles they put out, or Psychology Today. If your name is mentioned, or if you can get your website to be plugged in, that's going to do really well for your SEO. So all of these things that I'm talking about, it takes time to do any of these things. So you want to create your website and then you want to add these additional things on your website and then do all this engagement off of your website. So it is going to take some of your time if you want to have a really, really well performing website. If you don't care too much about that and you want to have a good presence, create a website and you can still do really well. But if you want to do better than all of your competition out there, this is really what it's going to take. And you want people to find you, you're going to have to engage a little bit. And one thing about SEO that I didn't mention earlier is a website who has some age or that has some age will do better than a brand new website. So age is important, how long you've been online, as well as how relevant and current your content is and how recently you've added content and how frequently you're adding content. So all of that is really important. And yes, I understand it's going to take some time, but you'll see that it really pays off in terms of people finding you when they perform a search on Google. And most people are looking for any type of service online. So I think that it's really worth investing a couple hours a week just putting into your website and helping promote it and engaging socially just to drive up those searches. Let me see. Sorry, I'm going to scroll up in the questions because somebody asked something I can't see. I heard that the number of years you bought. The number of years you bought the domain name, I think that it matters how long it's been in use more than how long ago you bought it. So it is true. That doesn't mean that if you just buy a domain name right now that you can't do well. It just means that age will matter in terms of your website. And another note about social media, a lot of people ask me, Gretchen, I'll get you to your question in a second. A lot of people ask me if I get clients from social media. And my answer is yes and no. I don't think that I've ever gotten a client who saw me on Twitter and decided that they want to come see me for therapy because I have followers on Twitter around the world. Or I don't have a Facebook page for my business, but I don't think that therapists necessarily get a whole lot of clients through social media. However, linking your website to your social media accounts will help your website do better and in terms get you clients. If you already have a site, would you recommend just changing it? Can you change the URL if perhaps you want something different? Yes, you can change your URL. You'll have to purchase a new one through a service like GoDaddy.com. You can definitely change your URL. If you already have a site now and you feel like it's not doing that well when people search either for your name or for your specialty, I would recommend changing it up so that it can do better. It's really worth the the minimal time and money that it's going to cost to do better. If you have a website and nobody can find it, you're not really doing yourself a service. You can get a GoDaddy URL to WordPress. You can link a GoDaddy URL to any of your sites. You can also redirect your URL. So I can have, Rachel.com go to GlendaleTherapy.com. But it's really the main URL that you're using that will work towards your SEO. Any other questions about this? I'm going to move on to the next site and then we can come back to it. Okay, so now that you have the most search optimized websites, what's next? So you really have to spend some time in maintaining your website. And I mentioned earlier how important blogging is and how you should be doing it regularly if you are thinking about blogging. Think about who your audience is and who you're talking to. You want to have updates to your site as regularly as once a week. Sometimes you don't have time for that, and maybe once a month is enough for you to stay relevant. And you want to engage with your audience. And that's really something important to think about. Are you engaging through a blog or a Twitter presence to stay relevant? What do you suggest blogging through? So if you have a WordPress account, the top reason that I would probably recommend WordPress if you're thinking about blogging is that it's built right into your website, so you don't have to do anything extra. You just go add a post instead of adding a page, and then a blog is created for you. And your blog will help you with SEO, probably best on WordPress than anywhere else. However, you can create a WordPress blog or a Blogger blog through Google or any of the other blogging services, and then your website will probably have a plugin that will just show your blog on your website. I hope that makes sense. How about promoting content that already exists versus constantly creating new content? Your thoughts. So you will get more SEO points for original content than content that exists anywhere else. And the same is true for when you're creating profiles on any of these directories. If you are copying and pasting your same profile over and over again, even though it's by you and your content, that's not going to do as well as if you create a new profile or about me or personal statement for each directory. So the more original content you have, the better. Sometimes I have a blog entry that's like, here is this informational infographic on depression. And I balance that with original content that I create so that I can have a lot of content and a lot of original content. I would like to create more content, but not maybe add more pages. I think the hidden pages will help SEO. If I link the hidden pages, will this help SEO? If you want to create more content and not add more pages, and that's a really important point, because on your website, you do not want to have 50 different links or 50 different pages on your heading, you know, where the main menu is. You don't want to have 50 different buttons. I think the most you should have, there's a right number, but I think it's something like 5 max navigation. You don't want to have more than 5 menu options on your navigation. So the best way to create more content is through a blog, for sure. And the other bonus to having a blog is that you can have keywords and you can tag words that you can tell Google your blog post is about, and that will help your whole website. That makes sense? Any other questions about blogging? I see people are typing, so I'm going to wait a second. Okay, I'm going to move on, and then if I see questions, I'll come back. If you don't have a WordPress, does it just link with the plugin? Can you go back? Okay, so you can, whatever website you're using, if you're using Wix or Squarespace, there should be a plugin where you can create a blog on a different blog service and then have one of the pages on your website, let's say on Wix, be your blog. It shouldn't be too difficult to do. It's totally doable. Can you please go back to what we need to have on our website, please? And then, do you mean for navigation or just overall what should be on the website? So I'm going to have this presentation up on our blog right after it's done. So you should be able to watch it. But really quickly, you want to have about you, your services, fees, a picture, things like that. But I spoke about it in more detail earlier, so you're more than welcome to watch the presentation again for the sake of time. I'm going to talk about some of the really helpful resources that are out there for you. Google is going to be your best friend when it comes to making a website, when it comes to thinking about all of the changes you can do and all of the SEO you can do. Any question you have, type it into Google first and see what shows up. You'll be surprised at how many people are out there answering the same question that you have in different forums, in YouTube videos that you can just watch, and you can see somebody doing it on their screen and just do it yourself. The book that I really, really like about SEO is called SEO Made Simple, and I'll link to it when I put this website up on the blog. It's really helpful. I've read it about 4 times now, and it's a really quick read. You'll read it in an afternoon. I read it once and then read it as I was creating my website and then read it after to make sure I was doing everything I needed to. Everything I talked about when in terms of SEO, it's really explained in that book in detail. So that's something that you want to look into if you're thinking about having good SEO for your site. The ShrinkSync blog, I'm committing to blogging once a week for ShrinkSync and really explaining all of these features because I believe that they can be fairly simple ideas if we just break it down. And you don't need to know everything there is about SEO. You just need to know how it matters for your practice and how it pertains to your website. And if you can just use a few of these simple ideas, you can do really well in attracting clients and driving business to your site. And then, like I mentioned earlier, different forums. The questions you have are probably already been answered, have probably already been answered. So check them out before you hire somebody and pay them thousands of dollars to do it for you. And that's why I wanted to have this webinar, is because I really believe you can do this yourself. You don't need to be a tech guru. There are all these tools that have made it easier for you to do. So I'm going to go into questions. There's one here, and then I'll answer some of the ones that I see. I'm going to read this one. I have 2 URLs right now. Is redirecting to Angela French. Should I consider what the other way around? It might be moving out of the area. Okay, so if Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that if you have 2 websites, let's say I have Rachel.com and it directs to latherapy.com, for example. The URL that's really going to count for your SEO is the one that's directly connected to your website. Is that right? Yes. So the one that you're having redirect, if it's Rachel.com redirects to latherapy.com, but the one directly connected to your website is not Rachel.com, then that's not going to count for your SEO at all. So if you're thinking about configuring your connection, connect the one that's going to count, that you want to count. So if I buy Teen Therapy LA and if I buy Child Therapist LA and have them redirect to my site, it's simply for the convenience of people typing in that URL. Okay. Do you suggest we have a website as MFT interns for blogging purposes? I have my doctorate already, but obviously cannot practice yet. So I've seen several interns with really great websites and that have really great blogs. As long as you put on there that you are supervised by your supervisor and you're doing all of your advertising in a legal way and disclosing everything, there's no reason why you can't have one as an intern and start building your content now. And then once you're licensed, all you have to do is change anywhere that says you're an intern to being a licensed person. And then pick a URL that would be relevant for now as an intern and also in the future as a licensed person. But there's no reason why you couldn't start blogging now. And I think that it's a really good way to get your information out there and get people to learn about you. So as questions are coming in, I'm going to add one more thing, that there was a question about what should be on your website. I have been kind of tinkering with the idea of having forums on the website, and I know that there's Formspace that can do that, and in our last webinar, Bruce Gale shared a little bit more about that. So some people have their forms on their website, and that's something to consider if you want people to go on and fill that out before they meet with you. Yes, something to consider is that any marketing that you do as an intern needs to be paid by your supervisor. Um, I know that this is true for the BBS. Possibly we need to look into for psychologists, but legally, if you are an MFT intern or a social work intern working in private practice, your supervisor needs to pay for any advertising that you do, including having a website. Yes. So don't make your supervisor pay, don't have your supervisor make you pay for your office space or business cards or anything like that. So like I mentioned earlier, this presentation will be up on our blog so you can review it. And if you have any questions, you can comment on that blog post right underneath the video, and I'll be happy to go in and either answer questions there, or if it's something that a lot of people are interested in and we can do a presentation on, we'll incorporate it in our next presentation. Oh, you're so sweet. Thanks, Diana. She's my high school psychology teacher, and she's incredible, and I'm sure she's an incredible therapist as well. So I'm so excited you are here. Um, I hope that this has helped people not be afraid of creating a website. It's not as daunting as you would think. Just give it a shot. I mean, trying anything new as a I don't need to be telling therapists this, but trying anything new is going to be difficult, and it's going to be a challenge to learn something new. But there's so much help out there, and there's so much information that it's going to be simpler than you think. And just learning this new skill, I think that you will appreciate being able to go in and make any changes you want instead of paying somebody to do it, or relying on somebody to change your content for you. Oh, good. I'm glad it was helpful. And if you think of more questions that need to be covered in terms of digital marketing for therapists, give us a note, and we will be more than happy to address it. Oh, I'm so glad. Um, have a great rest of your week. I'm also available for consultations, as is Anita. So if you need more help, let us know, and we will be more than happy to help with that. Good luck, everybody, in creating your amazing websites, and looking forward to having you join our next webinar, which is next Tuesday. We'll have a webinar on working with your teens or parents with teens, and you will receive the information about that today. Take care, everybody. Thank you.